Hello and welcome to Insomniac Dose. You're welcome to comment your city and the time below. I always enjoy reading them. If you find these stories interesting, please consider subscribing. Let's start tonight's story. I inherited my Aunt Caroline's boarding house on a Tuesday in late September, which felt appropriately grim given that I'd never really known her. She was the odd one in the family, the one people mentioned in careful edited sentences at Thanksgiving, the one who sent birthday cards with no return address and Christmas gifts that arrived in February. My mother once told me Aunt Caroline had her own way of doing things, which is what our family says when they mean someone has gone quietly, persistently insane. The boarding house sits on Eldridge Street, a road that must have been bustling once, maybe 40 or 50 years ago, when downtown still had a downtown. Now it's just quiet, not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet where you notice how many streetlights are burned out. The house itself is tall and narrow, crammed between a closed antique shop and a parking lot that never has cars in it. It's old enough to have been remodeled multiple times by multiple people who didn't consult each other, so nothing quite agrees. The porch leans slightly to the left. The windows on the second floor are different sizes. The front door is painted a cheerful yellow that looks obscene against the gray siding, like someone tried to be optimistic and gave up halfway. I arrived with a suitcase, a folder of estate paperwork, and a plan. Clean it up, assess the damage, sell it, and move on. I expected dust. I expected repairs. I expected maybe some old furniture and the vague smell of decay that comes with places nobody's lived in for a while. I did not expect tenants. But there were tenants. The place was occupied, not crowded, but lived in, functioning, ongoing. There were shoes lined up neatly by the door, 4 pairs, all different sizes. There was a coat rack with jackets that looked recently worn. The hallway smelled like toast and lavender soap. In the kitchen, the kettle was still warm. I stood in the entryway, confused and slightly panicked, wondering if the lawyer had made a mistake. But then I saw the nameplates on the doors, small brass plaques, polished and deliberate. Room 2, J. Hauer. Room 4, M. Torrance. Room 6, L. Saying. Room 7, E. Moss. The house wasn't empty, it was running. On the dining room table, centered precisely on a lace doily that looked like it had been crocheted during the Eisenhower administration, was a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in my aunt's handwriting. Narrow, slanting letters that looked like they'd been written with a pen that was running out of ink. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of unlined paper folded once. At the top, in the same handwriting, it said, "Rules for keeping the house." I read it standing up, still holding my suitcase. The rules were written like someone trying very hard to sound casual while secretly begging you to pay attention. Some of them were simple, bordering on mundane. Some were not. Do not rent the attic room, even if they offer cash. If a tenant introduces themselves twice, you must ask them to leave. Never knock on a bedroom door after sundown. If you must speak, stand in the hallway and speak softly. If you hear someone walking upstairs when the upstairs is empty, turn the hall light off and count slowly to 20. Check the mail every day, even if you are not expecting anything. Do not move the furniture in the common areas unless you are prepared to move it back. There were others, small, specific, bizarre. Instructions about which lights to leave on at night. A warning not to answer the phone before 8 a.m. A note about never serving tea in the blue china. At the bottom of the page, in slightly darker ink, as if it had been added later, was one final line. If you throw this list away, the house will replace it. I read that line 3 times. It felt like a joke, the kind of thing Aunt Caroline would write because she thought it was whimsical or clever. Some quirky old lady flourish meant to make me smile at her. Eccentricity. I imagined her sitting at this same table, writing it with a little smile, thinking she was being charmingly mysterious. But the handwriting didn't look whimsical. It looked tired. I set the list down, smoothed it flat with my palm, and told myself I'd figure it out in the morning. I was still holding my suitcase. I still hadn't even seen my bedroom. That night, I took the smallest room on the first floor, the one that used to be Aunt Caroline's office, according to the layout the lawyer had sent. It had a narrow bed, a desk, and a window that looked out onto the side yard, where a bird feeder hung from a rusted pole swaying slightly in the wind. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Old houses make noise, I knew that. Floorboards contract, pipes tick. Wind gets under the shingles, but this wasn't that. At 11:47 p.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. Not the creak of a settling house, not the ambient groan of old wood. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving from one end of the hallway to the other. I sat up. According to the estate documents, the second floor had 4 tenant rooms, all supposedly occupied. The third floor was listed as storage. The attic wasn't listed at all. The footsteps were coming from above the third floor. I remembered the rule. If you hear someone walking upstairs when the upstairs is empty, turn the hall light off and count slowly to 20. I got out of bed, went into the hallway, and flipped the switch for the hall light. The darkness was immediate and total, the kind that makes you feel like you've gone blind. I counted. 1, 2, 3. The footsteps upstairs stopped. 4, 5, 6. I heard a door open very softly, like someone was trying not to disturb anyone. 7, 8, 9. A breath of cold air rolled down from somewhere above me, carrying a faint smell, damp wood and something metallic like old keys left in a drawer. 10, 11, 12. I kept counting even, though my hands were shaking. 19. I reached for the light switch. 20. I flipped it on. The hallway looked exactly the same, empty, quiet. The doors to the tenant rooms were all closed, the nameplates gleaming softly in the yellow light. But at the far end of the hallway, near the staircase that led to the third floor, there was a door I hadn't noticed before. It was open. Just slightly, just enough to see darkness beyond it, and the bottom 3 steps of a narrow staircase leading up. The attic. I walked toward it slowly, my heart beat loud in my ears. I didn't remember seeing that door earlier. I didn't remember it being open. When I reached it, I stood in the hallway and stared up into the dark. The air coming from the stairwell was cold, much colder than it should have been. It smelled like damp wood and iron and something else, something I couldn't name but recognized in the way you recognize a stranger's cologne and realize you've smelled it before somewhere. You shouldn't have. I reached for the doorknob, and from the darkness above I heard a soft click, like a lock turning from the inside. I closed the door. I went back to my room, sat on the edge of the bed and read the list again. Do not rent the attic room, even if they offer cash. I did not sleep that night. The next morning I met the tenants. They came down one by one, polite and quiet, moving through the house like they were part of its routine rather than guests inside it. They didn't seem surprised to see me. If anything, they seemed to have been expecting me. The first was Mr. Hauer, a man in his 60s with silver hair and glasses that caught the light in a way that made it hard to see his eyes. He introduced himself while pouring coffee in the kitchen, his voice soft and precise. You must be Caroline's niece, he said, extending a hand. James Hauer, room 2. I've been here 8 years. 8 years. I shook his hand. It was warm, dry, perfectly normal. She was a good landlady, he continued, stirring sugar into his coffee with a small spoon. Very particular but fair. He didn't say I'm sorry for your loss. He didn't ask how I was doing. He just nodded, picked up his coffee, and walked back upstairs, his footsteps steady and even. The second tenant was a woman in her 40s named Mary Torrance. She wore gloves, soft leather ones, the kind you'd wear to a funeral, and didn't take them off even when she shook my hand. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Room 4, she said. "I keep to myself mostly. You won't have any trouble from me." She paused at the base of the stairs, glanced back at me, and added, "Your aunt had very good instincts. I hope you do too." Then she went upstairs. I met 2 more tenants that morning, a younger man named Eric Moss, who paid in cash and never asked for receipts, and an older woman named Lily Saying, who spoke in a whisper and smelled faintly of rosewater. They were all cordial. They were all calm. And they all called Aunt Caroline a good landlady. But none of them sounded sad. They sounded relieved, like they'd survived her. That afternoon, I started going through the paperwork in Aunt Caroline's office. There were file cabinets filled with lease agreements, old rent receipts, maintenance logs, and records that went back decades. I was looking for something, anything, that explained why she'd written those rules, why she'd lived here alone for so long, why she'd left the house to me instead of selling it. I found receipts for monthly pest control, which seemed excessive for a house this size. I found a notebook full of phone numbers with no names attached. I found a stack of unopened birthday cards, all addressed to her, all from me, all from years ago. I also found 3 copies of the rules list, printed on different kinds of paper, as if she'd rewritten it multiple times and couldn't settle on the right version. At the bottom of one copy in pencil was a note: "Tested, confirmed, do not deviate." As the sun set, I heard the tenants moving upstairs, closing doors, settling in for the night. The house grew quieter but not silent. There was always some sound, a creak, a sigh, a faint hum that seemed to come from the walls themselves. At 9:30 p.m. I heard it again. Footsteps, upstairs. Slow and deliberate, moving along the 3rd-floor hallway. I checked the tenant log. According to Aunt Caroline's records, the 3rd floor was listed as storage. No rooms, no occupants. I remembered the rule. If you hear someone walking upstairs when the upstairs is empty, turn the hall light off and count slowly to 20. I stood in the 1st-floor hallway, my hand on the light switch, my heart pounding. I flipped the switch. Darkness swallowed the hallway. I counted 1, 2, 3. The footsteps stopped. 4, 5, 6. I heard the sound of a door opening somewhere far above me. 7, 8, 9. Cold. Air drifted down the stairwell, carrying that same smell, damp wood, metal, something old and patient. 10, 11, 12. I kept counting, forcing myself to breathe slowly. 13, 14, 15. I heard something else. A voice. Soft, distant, like someone speaking from the other side of a wall. It said, "You're doing well. 16, 17, 18. My hand was shaking. 19. The voice again, closer now. She always counted too fast. 20. I flipped the light on. The hallway was empty, but at the far end, the door to the attic stairwell was open again. Wider this time. I could see the bottom 5 steps now, and the pale glow of something, moonlight maybe, or something pretending to be moonlight, spilling down from above. I walked toward it slowly, my footsteps muffled by the old carpet runner. When I reached the door, I looked up into the stairwell. The stairs were narrow, steep, and covered in dust. But at the top, maybe 12 steps up, I could see, a landing, and beyond it the edge of a door frame. The attic room. The one the rules said never to rent. I reached for the doorknob to close it, and from the darkness above I heard it again. Click, a lock turning, from the inside. I pulled the door shut, my hands trembling, and stepped back. The house was silent. I went back to my room, locked the door, and sat on the bed with the rules list in my lap. I read the line at the bottom again. If you throw this list away, the house will replace it. I folded the paper carefully, slid it into the desk drawer, and lay down in the dark. At some point, I fell asleep. When I woke, it was 6:47 a.m., and there was a new piece of paper on the desk. It was the rules list, the same rules, the same handwriting. But I hadn't printed it, and the drawer was still closed. My cousin Derek arrived on Thursday with a clipboard, a tape measure, and a confidence I immediately envied. He worked in real estate, flipping houses in the suburbs, and he insisted on coming to assess the property value and help me figure out my options. He stood on the front porch, hands on his hips, squinting up at the building like he was already calculating square footage. "It's got good bones," he said. "Weird layout, but fixable. You could turn this into condos or Airbnb units. People love this vintage shit." I didn't tell him about the rules. I didn't tell him about the footsteps or the attic door or the list that kept reappearing no matter where I put it. I just handed him the keys and followed him inside. Derek moved through the house like he owned it, opening closets, knocking on walls, and taking notes. He met Mr. Hauer in the hallway and shook his hand too hard. He waved at Mary Torrance through her open door and called her ma'am in a way that made her smile tighten. When we reached the third-floor landing, Derek paused. "What's up here?" "Storage," I said quickly. "Storage?" He looked at the narrow staircase leading up to the attic. "That's a waste. You could rent this. Attic rooms are trendy. Skylight, some paint. You'd get good money." "I'm not renting it," he frowned. "Why not?" "Because the rules say not to. Because the door locks from the inside. Because something walks up there at night, and it doesn't sound like a person." "It's just not in good shape," I said. Derek grinned. "Then we fix it." Before I could stop him, he grabbed the handle of the attic stairwell door and pulled. It opened easily. Too easily. The stairs stretched up into darkness, steep and narrow, the air inside cold and stale. Derek shone his phone's flashlight up the stairwell, illuminating dust motes that hung in the air like they'd been waiting. "See?" he said. "It's fine. Just needs some work." "Derek, don't—" But he was already climbing. I stood at the bottom, my pulse hammering, watching his silhouette disappear into the dark. For a long moment, there was silence. Then I heard his voice, distant and echoing. "Holy shit, this place is huge." I didn't follow him. I stayed at the bottom of the stairs, my hand on the doorframe, every instinct screaming at me to call him back down. When he finally came back, he was smiling, brushing dust off his jacket. "You could charge $800 a month for that, easy. It's got character, sloped ceiling, old beams, kind of creepy charming. People eat that up." "I'm not renting it," I said again, more firmly this time. Derek shrugged. "Your loss?" We went back downstairs. Derek made notes, talked about contractors, and suggested I get the porch reinforced and the windows replaced. He was halfway through a lecture about market trends when Mr. Hauer appeared in the hallway. He smiled politely. "Excuse me," he said, "I don't think we've met." "James Hauer, room 2. Derek glanced at me, confused. "We met this morning, man, upstairs." Mr. Hauer's smile didn't waver. "Did we? I'm sorry, I don't remember." He extended his hand. Derek hesitated, then shook it. Mr. Hauer's grip was firm, polite, and cold. When he let go, Derek flexed his fingers slightly, frowning. "Anyway," Mr. Hauer said, still smiling, "nice to meet you." He walked past us, climbed the stairs, and disappeared into his room. Derek looked at me. "That guy okay?" I remembered the rule. If a tenant introduces themselves twice, you must ask them to leave. I should have said something. I should have walked up to Mr. Hauer's door and told him calmly and politely that he needed to go. But I didn't. Because it sounded insane. Because Derek was standing right there, looking at me like I was already losing it. because I didn't believe it yet. Not really. That night, Derek stayed in the guest room on the first floor. He said he didn't mind, that it was easier than driving home, that he wanted to get a feel for the place. At 11:20 p.m., I heard him go upstairs to use the bathroom. At 11:34 p.m., I heard him come back down. He knocked on my door, his voice tight and strange. "Hey, can I talk to you?" I opened the door. Derek was pale, his eyes wide, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "I saw someone," he said quietly. "Where?" "In the bathroom, in the mirror." I waited. I was washing my hands, and I looked up, and there was someone standing behind me, close, like right behind me. They were smiling. "Who was it?" "I don't know." I turned around and no one was there, but in the mirror, he stopped, swallowed. They were still there, still smiling like they knew me. He left 20 minutes later. He said he had an early meeting, that he'd email me his notes and that we'd talk soon. But when he tried to open the front door, it didn't budge. He pulled harder. The door stayed closed. "It's stuck," he muttered, pulling again, rattling the handle. I reached past him and turned the knob. The door opened smoothly, easily, like it had never been stuck at all. Derek stepped out onto the porch. The porch light flickered once, casting long shadows across the yard. For a moment, the street beyond looked wrong, stretched, too long, like a hallway instead of a road. Derek stared at it, his jaw tight. "I'll call you," he said. He walked to his car, got in, and started the engine. It stalled. He tried again. It stalled again. The third time, it started. He didn't look back. I called him the next morning. His phone went straight to voicemail. I called again that afternoon. Voicemail. I texted him. No response. It's been 4 days now. Derek hasn't answered a single message. It's like the house swallowed his connection to the outside world. And I'm starting to think it did. I spent the next 3 days in Aunt Caroline's office, going through every file, every drawer, every scrap of paper she'd left behind. I was looking for something, proof maybe that I wasn't losing my mind, or an explanation, or an exit strategy that didn't involve abandoning the house and everyone in it. What I found was worse than I expected. The rent ledgers went back decades, 40, maybe 50 years, written in different hands by different landlords. The entries were meticulous, dated and signed, but the longer I read, the stranger they became. Some names repeated across decades. James Hauer, for example, appeared in the 1998 ledger, the 2005 ledger, and the 2019 ledger. Same name, same room number, same neat, cramped handwriting next to each entry. Paid in full. Mary Torrance's name appeared in a ledger from 1987. She would have been a child then, or not born yet, but it was the payments that made my skin crawl. Most entries were normal, dates, amounts, check numbers, but scattered throughout were others. March 12, 1994, E. Moss, Room 7, one song, October 3, 2001, L. Saying, Room 6, one apology, June 18, 2008, J. Hauer. Room 2, 1 hour. 1 hour of what? I kept digging. In the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, I found a bundle of letters tied with a string. They were addressed to Aunt Caroline, postmarked from different cities, all from people who signed their names with the title Former Keeper. I opened the oldest one, dated 1979, written in shaky cursive on lined paper. Dear Caroline, I'm sorry to leave the house to you like this. I know what you're thinking. I thought the same thing when Margaret left it to me. You'll try to sell it. You'll try to walk away. You'll think you can fix it or clean it or reason with it. You can't. The house is not a business, it's an arrangement. The tenants are not renters, they're inhabitants. Some of them are people, some of them used to be, some of them were never people at all. Your only job is to keep the balance, follow the rules. Don't ask questions they don't want to answer, don't fix what they don't want fixed, and whatever you do, don't let anyone into the attic. If you do, the house will decide you're not the keeper anymore. It will decide you're a tenant. Good luck. I'm sorry. Peter. I read the letter 3 times. Then I read the others. They all said the same thing, in different words with different levels of desperation. I did not know what I was inheriting. The house does not belong to you. You belong to it. Do not trust the tenants when they seem helpful. The house teaches them to lie. One letter, dated 2003, included a photocopy of an older rules list. It was longer than the one Aunt Caroline had left me, written in tight, frantic handwriting, with several rules scratched out so hard the pen had torn through the paper. At the bottom, someone had written in red ink, "Do not ask the tenants where they used to live. They will tell you, and then you will remember it." I sat back in the chair, staring at the letter. The house wasn't just housing people, it was housing something that wanted to be treated like people. The tenants weren't random, they were arranged. The rooms were assigned for a reason. The rules weren't guidelines, they were a script. And if I broke the script, the house would rewrite me into it. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. At 2:17 a.m. I heard footsteps again, not upstairs this time, in the hallway, right outside my door. Slow, deliberate, stopping just outside my room. I held my breath. A soft knock, 3 taps, evenly spaced. I didn't answer. Another knock, then a voice, low and calm. "Are you awake?" It was Mr. Hauer. I didn't move. "I know you're awake," he said softly. "I can hear you breathing." I clenched my fists, every muscle in my body locked. "Your aunt used to talk to me," he continued. "Late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she'd stand in the hallway just like you're lying in bed now, and she'd listen." A long pause. She understood the house better than anyone. She knew what we were. Another pause. "Do you?" I didn't answer. After a moment, I heard his footsteps again, slow and even, walking back down the hallway toward the stairs. I waited until I heard his door close, then I got up, walked to the desk, and pulled out the rules list. At the bottom, I added a new line in pencil. "Do not open the door at night. No matter who knocks." When I woke the next morning, the pencil line was gone. But typed neatly at the bottom of the list, in the same font as the others, was a new rule. At night, the house uses kindness like a key. I hadn't typed it. The printer wasn't even on. I met the guardian on a Sunday morning, though I didn't know that's what he was at first. I was on the front porch trying to fix the crooked railing when I saw him across the street, watering the flowers in front of a small brick house that looked just as old and tired as the boarding house. He was in his 70s, maybe older, wearing a canvas jacket and a flat cap, moving slowly and deliberately, the way people do when they've learned that hurrying doesn't help. He looked up, saw me watching, and raised a hand in a brief, polite wave. I waved back. He turned off the hose, crossed the street, and stopped at the edge of the porch. "You're Caroline's niece," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I'm Sarah." "Martin Fletcher." He nodded toward the boarding house. "I live across the way, used to help your aunt out now and then." "With repairs?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "With reminders." I didn't know what that meant, but something about the way he said it made me set down the hammer. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "You can ask." "Did my aunt ever talk to you about the rules?" Martin looked at me for a long moment, then glanced up at the second-floor windows, as if checking to see if anyone was watching. "She did," he said, quietly, toward the end. "What did she say?" He hesitated, then gestured toward the porch steps. "Mind if I sit?" "Go ahead." He sat down slowly, resting his hands on his knees, and I sat beside him. "Your aunt wasn't a landlady," he said. "Not really. She was a keeper." "A keeper of what?" "The house. The balance. The arrangement. He looked at me. You've read the rules by now, I assume. I have. Then you know the house doesn't work like other houses. It doesn't follow normal logic. It doesn't care about property law or market value or whether you want to live here or not. Then what does it care about? Order, Martin said. Routine. The rules keep the house in a kind of stasis. As long as you follow them, the house stays calm. The tenants stay calm. Nothing escalates. And if I don't? He looked at me like I'd just asked if fire was hot. Then the house stops treating you like the keeper, he said, and it starts treating you like a tenant. A chill ran through me. What does that mean? It means the house assigns you a room. It means you stop being able to leave. It means you become part of the arrangement, just like them. He nodded toward the windows again. Your aunt understood that. She followed the rules for 34 years. She never let the house trick her into thinking she had control. But she's dead. She is, Martin said quietly. And the house let her go because she trained someone to take her place. He looked at me. You. I stared at him, my stomach twisting. I didn't agree to this. Neither did she. Martin stood slowly, brushing dust off his pants. But here we are. He started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. There's one rule your aunt never wrote down, he said. She told me once late at night after she'd had a glass of wine and couldn't sleep. She said it was the most important one, but it sounded too insane to put on paper. What is it? If the house offers to fix something for you, don't let it. I frowned. Fix what? Anything, Martin said. A door that sticks, a pipe that leaks, a window that won't close. If the house offers to make it right, if it fixes something without you asking, don't trust it. Why not? Because when the house fixes things, it changes them to match itself. A repaired door becomes a door that locks from the wrong side. A fixed mirror becomes a mirror that remembers faces. He met my eyes. Your aunt had a friend once, another keeper from 2 towns over. She let the house fix her heating system one winter. It worked beautifully. Never broke down again. And 3 months later, she couldn't leave the house, not physically. She'd walk to the front door, open it, and step outside, and she'd be standing in the hallway again. The house had repaired the exit. He tipped his cap. Good luck, Sarah. I'll be across the street if you need me. He walked away, slow and steady, and didn't look back. I sat on the porch for a long time after that, staring at the house, feeling its weight pressing down on me. That night, the hallway light started flickering. It had been fine all week. Now it stuttered every few seconds, buzzing faintly like something was trying to force its way through the wiring. I stood in the hallway staring up at the bulb and thought about what Martin had said. If the house offers to fix something for you, don't let it. The light flickered again. Then it went out completely. The hallway went dark, and in the dark I heard a voice. Soft, calm, familiar. I can fix that for you. It sounded like Aunt Caroline. I didn't answer. I went to the basement, found the breaker box, and flipped the switch manually. The light came back on. It didn't flicker again. But the next morning when I came downstairs, there was a new light bulb sitting on the dining room table. I hadn't bought it. I hadn't asked for it. I left it there. It happened on a Thursday night, just past midnight. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to calculate how much longer I could stay in this house before I either broke or became part of it, when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant, 3 light taps on my door. I didn't move. Then I heard the voice. Please. It was a woman's voice, shaking, terrified. Please, I need help. I sat up. There's someone in my room. My heart was pounding now. I recognized the voice. Lily saying, Room 6. Please, she said again, her voice breaking. "I can hear them. They're standing by the window. They're not moving. They're just standing there." I stood up, walked to the door, and stopped with my hand on the knob. The rule list was on the desk behind me. Never knock on a bedroom door after sundown. If you must speak, stand in the hallway and speak softly. But this wasn't about knocking. This was about answering. I unlocked the door and opened it a crack. Lily was standing in the hallway barefoot, wearing a nightgown that looked too big for her. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and glassy. "There's someone in my room," she whispered. "I can't go back in there." "Where are they?" "By the window, just standing, watching." I looked past her, down the hallway. The hall light was off. I didn't remember turning it off. "Lily," I said carefully, "when did you last see them?" "Just now." I opened my eyes and they were there. "Did they say anything?" "No." They just smiled. A cold knot formed in my stomach. "I need you to go back to your room," I said. She stared at me, her expression crumbling. "I can't. You have to." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why won't you help me?" "Because the rules say not to. Because the house uses kindness like a key. Because I don't know if you're really Lily anymore." "Please," she said, tears streaming down her face now. "Please just come look. Just for a second. You don't have to stay. Just look." I wanted to help her. God, I wanted to help her. But I remembered what Martin had said. The house teaches them to lie. I looked at Lily, really looked at her, and noticed something I hadn't before. She was standing in the hallway, but she wasn't casting a shadow. The hallway was dark, but there was a faint glow from somewhere. Maybe the street light outside, maybe something else. Enough light that I should have been able to see her shadow on the wall. But there was nothing. "I can't help you, Lily," I said quietly. Her expression changed. The fear drained out of her face, replaced by something calm and cold and patient. "Your aunt was kinder than you," she said. Her voice didn't shake anymore. It didn't sound scared. It sounded disappointed. I closed the door. I locked it. I stood there, my back against the wood, my hands trembling, listening. For a long moment there was silence. Then I heard footsteps, not walking away, walking toward the door, stopping just on the other side. And then, very softly, I heard Lily's voice again. But this time it wasn't pleading. It was singing. A lullaby, slow and haunting, the kind of song you'd sing to a child to help them sleep. I didn't recognize the words, but I recognized the melody. It was the same melody I'd heard coming from the attic the night I counted to 20. I stayed by the door until the singing stopped. When I finally moved, when I finally looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. But there was something on the floor right in front of my door. A single white flower. I didn't open the door to pick it up. In the morning it was gone. And when I saw Lily in the kitchen later that day, she smiled at me, polite and distant, like nothing had happened. "Good morning," she said. I didn't answer. I just nodded and left. That night I rewrote the rules list in my own handwriting. I didn't change anything. I just needed to feel like I still had some control. When I finished, I set it on the desk and went to bed. In the morning, my handwritten copy was gone, and in its place was the original list exactly as Aunt Caroline had written it. At the bottom, in fresh ink, was a new line. "The house does not need your permission, but it appreciates your obedience." It started small. The hallway felt longer when I walked to the kitchen, not dramatically longer, just enough that I noticed, just enough to make me count my steps and realize I was taking 3 or 4 more than I should have been. Doors that used to lead to the kitchen started leading to the stairs. The bathroom on the first floor moved. Not physically, I could still see it from the hallway, but when I opened the door, I found myself looking at the linen closet instead. I'd close the door, wait, and try again. The second time, it was the bathroom. The third time, it was a room I'd never seen before, small, empty, smelling like damp concrete and old copper. I stopped trying after that. The grandfather clock in the hallway started chiming at the wrong times. 3 a.m. became 7 p.m. Noon became midnight. It didn't matter what time I set it to. The clock ignored me. And the tenants started acting differently. Mary Torrance knocked on my door one evening, smiling politely, and introduced herself. "Mary Torrance," she said. "Room 4. I don't think we've properly met." We'd met 4 times. I remembered the rule. If a tenant introduces themselves twice, you must ask them to leave. This was the second time. I looked her in the eyes and said calm and clear, "You need to leave." Her smile didn't waver. "Of course," she said, "I understand." She walked to the front door, put her hand on the knob, and turned back to look at me. "Thank you," she said. Then she opened the door and stepped outside. The porch light flickered. For a moment, the street beyond looked wrong again, stretched, shadowed like the inside of a long hallway instead of a road. Mary turned back, still smiling. "Thank you for letting me out," she said. And then she was gone. I stood in the doorway, staring at the empty street, a sick feeling spreading through my chest. I looked down at the rules list, which I'd been carrying in my pocket. There was a note in the margin now, written in pencil and handwriting I didn't recognize. "If you evict the wrong one, the house will make you replace them." I went inside. I locked the door. I sat at the dining room table and tried to breathe. That night, the attic door opened again. Not just a crack this time. Fully open. The stairs stretched up into the dark, and at the top I could see a faint glow, warm and inviting like lamplight. I heard movement up there, slow, deliberate, like furniture being dragged carefully across the floor. Then the phone rang. The house phone. The landline in the hallway that hadn't worked since I'd moved in. I stared at it. It rang again. I picked it up. "Hello?" There was a pause, a soft crackle of static, and then a voice. Aunt Caroline's voice. "You're doing fine," she said, calm and warm. "Just rent the attic room. It will solve everything." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I walked back to the dining room and found something new on the table. A lease agreement, neatly printed, already filled out. The tenant's name was written at the top in careful handwriting. Sarah Mitchell. My name. I stared at it, my pulse roaring in my ears. The attic door creaked wider. The warm light spilled down the stairs. Impossible light. Light that didn't belong in an attic. I heard a voice from upstairs, soft and coaxing. "It's nicer up here. Quieter. You'll like it." I backed away from the stairs. The front door rattled. I turned. Martin Fletcher was on the porch, knocking, hard, his face pressed against the window. "Don't go up there," he shouted. "Sarah, don't—" But he wouldn't come inside. He stood on the porch, shouting through the glass, refusing to cross the threshold. I looked back at the attic stairs. The light was brighter now. I could hear something moving up there, footsteps slow and even coming down toward me. I grabbed the rules list off the table. I walked into the kitchen, and I set it on fire in the sink. Not to destroy it, to change it into something the house couldn't rewrite. The moment the paper caught flame, the house screamed, not a human scream, a sound like pipes shuddering, wood splitting, nails crying in the walls. The lights flickered violently. The attic door slammed shut so hard the frame cracked. The warm light went out. The hallway went black. And in the darkness I heard the house breathe. The silence that followed was worse than the scream. The house didn't creak. It didn't settle. It didn't, It waited. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the ashes in the sink, my hands still shaking. The rules list was gone. Truly gone this time, reduced to charred scraps and smoke. I'd burned the script, I'd refused the covenant, and now the house knew. I walked back into the hallway. The attic door was still closed, but I could see light bleeding from underneath it. Not the warm, inviting light from before, but something cold and pale like moonlight filtered through dirty glass. The grandfather clock chimed 13 times. It shouldn't have been possible. Clocks don't chime 13. But this one did. I heard footsteps upstairs again, slow and deliberate, moving along the second-floor hallway. Then I heard doors opening. One by one. Rooms 2, 4, 6, 7. The tenants were coming out. I stood at the base of the stairs, my heart pounding as they descended. Mr. Hauer first, his face calm and expressionless. Then Eric Moss, his eyes fixed on something just past my shoulder. Then Lily said, her lips moving silently as if she were singing a song I couldn't hear. They stopped at the bottom of the stairs, standing in a line, all facing me. None of them spoke. Behind them, on the second-floor landing, I saw Mary Torrance. She was standing in the hallway, smiling. But she wasn't alone. Someone was standing beside her. Someone I didn't recognize. Someone is wearing my clothes. I took a step back. The figure on the landing moved when I moved, mirroring me perfectly. It smiled when I didn't. It waved. Mr. Hauer finally spoke, his voice soft and measured. "The house is offering you a room," he said. "I don't want it." "You don't have to want it." He tilted his head slightly. "You just have to accept it." "And if I don't?" Lily's lips stopped moving. She looked at me, her eyes wide and empty, and said, "Then you'll be replaced." The attic door creaked open again. The cold light spilled down the stairs, and this time I heard something else. Music, the same lullaby Lily had sung outside my door. But now it was coming from everywhere, the walls, the floor, the air itself. I turned and ran. I didn't think, I just ran. Down the hallway toward the front door, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the silence. I grabbed the doorknob. It didn't turn. I pulled harder. It stayed locked. I heard the tenants behind me, their footsteps slow and even, not chasing, just following. "You can't leave," Mr. Hauer said calmly. "Not until you accept the room." I turned, my back against the door, and saw them standing in a line again, watching me. Behind them, the figure on the stairs, the one wearing my face, started walking down. I looked at the windows. They were dark, not covered, not blocked, just dark, like there was nothing beyond them, like the house had severed itself from the outside world entirely. I was trapped, and then I remembered what Martin had said. If the house offers to fix something for you, don't let it. The house wasn't offering to fix anything. It was offering me a room, a place, a script, but I hadn't accepted it, not yet. I pulled out my phone. No signal, no service. But I opened the Notes app and started typing. New rules. My rules. The house cannot assign a room without consent. The house cannot rewrite what is written in defiance. The house cannot keep what refuses to stay. I typed until my hands stopped shaking. Then I read it out loud. The tenants stopped moving. The figure on the stairs stopped. The music stopped. The house listened. And then very slowly the front door clicked, unlocked. I didn't wait. I turned, pulled the door open, and stepped outside. The street beyond was real, solid. Cold air hit my face, sharp and clean. I heard Martin's voice from across the street. "Run!" I did. I ran to his house, up the steps, and didn't stop until I was inside with the door locked behind me. Martin was standing in the hallway, pale and shaking. "You got out," he said, his voice hoarse. "For now." He looked at me, his expression grim. "The house won't let you sell it, not now. Not after what you did." "I know. You'll have to train someone else. Someone to take your place. That's the only way it lets keepers go." I looked out the window across the street at the boarding house. The lights were on. The tenants were standing in the windows watching. and on the porch, standing in the doorway, was the figure that looked like me. It smiled, it waved, and then it stepped back inside and closed the door. I stayed at Martin's house for 3 days. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the lullaby, the footsteps, the soft voice asking me to come back. On the 4th day, I went back. I had to. The estate lawyer called. The bank called. The utility company called. They all needed signatures, paperwork, confirmations that I was still the owner, still the keeper. I stood on the sidewalk outside the boarding house, staring up at the windows. The tenants were gone. Not all of them, but most. Mr. Howard's room was empty. Mary Torrance's room was empty. Eric Moss had left his key on the dining room table, along with a note that said, "Thank you for your service." Lily Sang was still there, but she didn't speak to me. She just smiled politely and went about her routine as if nothing had happened. The house looked normal from the outside, but I knew better. I went inside. The hallway was quiet. The grandfather clock was gone. The attic door was closed. On the dining room table, there was a single piece of paper. I recognized the handwriting immediately, Aunt Caroline's handwriting. It said, "You did well, better than I expected. But you cannot leave until you train someone else. The house needs a keeper. It always has. It always will. I'm sorry. You can leave when you find someone who understands." I sat down at the table, staring at the note. I thought about Derek, who hadn't answered my calls in over a week. I thought about Martin, who refused to step inside even now. I thought about the tenants, who had lived here for years, decades maybe, because they had nowhere else to go, or because they couldn't leave, or because the house had offered them a room and they had accepted. I thought about the figure on the stairs, the one that wore my face, the one that waved. It was still here. I could feel it. Waiting. That night I sat at the dining room table and started writing. A new list, new rules, not for survival, for transition. Rule 1. Do not accept the house's offer unless you understand what you are accepting. Rule 2. Do not train someone unless they ask. Rule 3. Do not stay longer than you have to. I wrote slowly, carefully, choosing each sentence like a lock. When I finished, I folded the paper and put it in an envelope. I addressed it to no one. I left it on the table. The next morning it was gone, and in its place was a new note, typed neatly in the same font as the original rules. "Thank you. The house is pleased." I sat down, staring at the note, feeling the weight of it settle over me. I wasn't the landlady, I was the keeper, and I would be until I found someone else to take my place, or until the house decided I wasn't useful anymore. I heard a sound from the hallway. A soft knock. 3 taps, evenly spaced. I walked to the door and opened it. There was no one there. But on the floor just outside the door was a single white flower. And behind me, from somewhere deep inside the house, I heard it. A voice, soft, polite, familiar. "Hello," it said. "I'd like to rent a room." I turned. The hallway was empty, but I knew. The house was introducing itself again, and this time I couldn't ask it to leave.